Hi, welcome to Cooking with ABN. My name is Ashley Beal and I'm a registered dietitian. Today we are going to be making one of my favorite mix and bake chicken pot pie. This quick and easy recipe requires very little prep and less than 30 minutes in the oven. It's one of my go-tos during the winter or those more cozy months where you just want something comforting and warm, but it's also great at other times of the year too. Save this recipe for your next rainy day and we'll get started. For today's ingredients, you will need a 10.5 ounce can of cream of chicken soup and another 10.5 ounce can of cream of mushroom soup. Now, as with any canned goods, you could choose a lower sodium option because we're going to season this ourselves anyway. Then you will need about a pound of shredded chicken. I'm going to be using my rotisserie chicken here. If you've seen some of my other videos, you know that I really like to shred a rotisserie chicken for things like this because it already has so much flavor and I get to skip the step of cooking the chicken myself. You will also need a 16-ounce bag of mixed veggies. I got the corn, peas, carrots, and green bean mixed veggies, but you can do whichever kind you like in your pot pie. You will need some milk, some shredded cheddar cheese, poultry seasoning. If you don't have poultry seasoning, you can do any other kind of seasoning blend that you usually like. Italian seasoning works well here, sage and thyme. Also just garlic powder and onion powder with some salt and pepper is fine. But we're gonna season it with this. Some salt and pepper, of course. Some oil spray to coat our pan. And last, but definitely not least, some kind of canned biscuit or croissant dough. Sometimes I will do a croissant dough and just lay it flat over what we're gonna make today. Today I'm actually gonna do biscuits where I'm gonna just lay the biscuits over top before we put it in the oven. So you can follow along with me with biscuits or you can do the croissant dough. For equipment today, we're gonna keep it really simple. You will want to have some kind of medium to large mixing bowl and mixing spoon to mix all of our ingredients together, and a 9x12 baking dish for the pot pie itself. Don't forget a can opener for any of those canned goods you're using today. Before we get started, let's go ahead and preheat our oven to 375 degrees. To get started, I'm gonna go ahead and place all of my ingredients except for the biscuits into the bowl. I'm gonna do my rotisserie chicken last, so that way I can mix it up with everything once it's ready, but you could also start with your rotisserie chicken. I'm gonna go ahead and start with my can of cream of mushroom and cream of chicken soup, rinsing off the tops. I don't have to use a can opener for my cans today. They have this nice little opening on them. And then I'm going to add them to the bowl. You can grab an additional spoon if you'd like and get everything out of the can in case some of it gets stuck. And then I'm going to add my entire bag of mixed vegetables to the bowl. These are still frozen, but it's also okay if you have already thawed them out. But they can be pulled straight from the freezer right into the bowl. Then I'm gonna add 1/2 cup of milk, about 1/2 cup of shredded cheddar, or however much you like. Then just about 1 teaspoon of the poultry seasoning. One of the best pieces of advice I got while learning to cook was that if a recipe calls for something in such small amounts, any adjustments you make to that, so whether you skip this ingredient, you just do salt and pepper, it's only gonna make a very minor difference because it's not a whole lot. So any of those recipes that you might see that have a 1/4 or an 1/8 teaspoon of a certain ingredient that you don't have and don't often use, you don't have to buy that ingredient. You can just substitute it or skip it altogether. Now I'm gonna go ahead and add some pepper and some salt. And before I mix everything, I'm gonna go ahead and shred my rotisserie chicken and then add it to the bowl as well. Now you can absolutely just leave your rotisserie chicken in the bag as you shred it. I just wanted to bring mine out to show you how I do it. For a more detailed description on how exactly I shred each piece, I will link another video below where I show more step by step. But to get started, I basically just take off all of the sides as best I can. And then I start with the breasts, which are the larger pieces of meat and will give me more chicken. Then you just take it and shred it. You can shred it into as small or as big of pieces as you like. And then I'm just gonna go back and I'm gonna do that to the rest of the chicken. And if you don't have rotisserie chicken and you're cooking your chicken yourself or using leftover chicken, you can always shred it using 2 forks and pulling it apart, or your hands like you see me doing here. And then if you're starting with raw chicken, you can really cook it however you want. You could boil it, you could roast it, cook it on a pan, and then shred it. I've actually done with leftover grilled chicken. I have cut it into small cubes. That was nice. Okay, this is about how much chicken I was able to get from just the chicken breasts, which I think that should be about enough. You can always mix it together and add more chicken if you'd like. As for my rotisserie chicken, if you shredded it in the bag, you probably made much less of a mess than I did. But what I usually like to do is just set aside the other pieces that I tore off at the beginning. And I like to save these for later in the week as a source of protein that I can add to my snacks or any leftovers that I have. And it always makes for such a tasty protein option. So don't throw those out. Setting that aside for now, all that's left is to mix all of the ingredients together and then put them into a greased baking dish, which we will do in just a second. Let's first see if we want to add any more chicken. I love this part where everything comes together and it starts to smell a little bit more like chicken pot pie. And it should look like this once everything is nice and combined. So I will take my baking dish, spray it with some oil spray, and then just pour the mixture in. Once you have everything in the baking dish, then you'll just want to push it out into all corners of your baking dish, making a nice even layer of the chicken pot pie filling, just like that. And then we are going to pop open our can of biscuits, finding the tab where it says start here, and gently pull off this first layer. This is always my favorite part. So you find the seam on the can, and I just use my fingers, and you just push. And it should pop. And then you just gently twist, getting all the biscuit dough out there. And then I'm going to lightly place them on top. And now it's ready for the oven. I'm gonna place it in our oven for about 25 minutes, setting my timer so that way I can check on it. I wanna make sure that those biscuits are nice and golden brown, and if they are not, I'll probably leave them in for an additional 5. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that started. Now that my timer is set for 25 minutes, I'm gonna use this time to tidy up my area, put everything away now that we're done with the ingredients. And then once the biscuits are nice and golden brown, our meal will be ready. All right, look at these nice golden brown biscuits. I actually ended up rotating mine in the oven, so that way the biscuits on the other side could get a little more browned, but that may depend on your oven at home. I also let it cool off for a few minutes so that way we'd be ready to serve. Grab your bowl and a large serving spoon and fill your bowl. And now for the best part. I like to get a little bit of biscuit and a little bit of the filling. my goodness, it's so good and cozy. My biscuits have a nice little crispy outside. It feels like something I've been working hard on all day, when in reality, I just mixed it all together and put it in a pan. Let me know what you think if you tried it. As always, I will link everything that I used here today in the description below and include a link to my introduction video to explain a little bit more about me and why I started these videos. But either way, thank you so much for being here with me today, and I'll see you next time.